And we're in. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Thanks for swinging by. I know you're on the other side of the highway.
Right.
And coming
It's Friday. It's LA. It's a lot.
coming east is a huge ask.
It is, but it's all good. No, I'm excited to be here and have a chat. So yeah, thanks.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
So right off the bat, I can tell from your accent you were born in South Central Los Angeles.
Absolutely, you're bang on. Slash England.
I always get those confused. No, but it's great. So yeah, I mean, like, it's great that to be able to chat with someone else who's lived abroad,
right,
and created abroad,
right,
and then now eventually here in LA. Somehow, we all end up here.
We do. This kind of the same configuration as London. You know, somehow you spend time there, always end up there, and do the circle in and out 360. So.
I feel like London's like way more aggressive as far as like just a city to live in. I feel like LA is super chill.
I think it is on the surface. That's when I came here. I was just like, oh, it seems pretty chilled. Everyone's in yoga pants and everyone's toned and tanned in comparison to London, where we're just sheet white and just miserable, heads down for most of the year. But I think underneath, the pace of the city is epic, and it's a real hustle. But yeah, I mean, London's a financial sector. It's got a lot going on. It's squeezed together, kind of like New York. But I think on the surface, this place looks pretty chilled, and you've got stunning places to hike and go and have a surf, and it's, underneath, I think there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the UK, you'd have to live next to the ocean, right? Which is clearly what you've done.
I wish. There is some beautiful coastline there, but no, I grew up in Cambridge, just north of London. I spent most of my childhood being brought up there, and then moved to London when I was 18. Couldn't wait to get out of the house and go, and was in and out of London most of my adult life, traveling a lot with my job, and then here I am in LA. So I've been here six and a half years.
Amazing. I love Cambridge. I used to go there almost once a year and do talks. So I worked for the New York Times covering China for many years before I made TV. And I used to travel around to all these universities and give talks in their China or like East Asian studies programs.
Right.
Because no one in these programs knew what was actually going on in China, because most of the professors don't even go to China every year. They just go to China like once every 3 or 4 years. But there was so much change going on.
Of course, yeah.
That I would go. And I love Cambridge. It was such a beautiful town.
Beautiful, yeah. I mean, I'm biased. I mean, I grew up there, but it is in comparison to even Oxford, which is beautiful. But it's just the layout, the architecture of how it is in Cambridge, and all the different colleges, the punting in the summer, just obviously the epic history of it, and who went to Cambridge.
Yeah.
I've never got bored walking around the grounds, summer there is just stunning when the sun comes out.
So did you play cricket or rugby?
Rugby. Yeah,
me too.
I was brought up on rugby. Our schools that me and my elder brother went to, that was it. Soccer was around, football, what you guys call soccer, but we didn't play that. No, it was all rugby. So
now that we have Lionel Messi in the United States, we're officially changing it to soccer globally.
Yeah, you got some. Does he play for David Beckham's? What does he play for?
Inter Milan.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I actually played rugby all through high school,
right.
and then carried on playing as an expat when I was living in China. We had a great team in Shanghai and Hong Kong, and met so many like great friends through that sport. And it's too bad like not enough people in North America grew up playing rugby, because it's such a beautiful game.
Such a beautiful game, and it is true what they say. You know, it's quite obviously violent on the pitch to somewhat, but off the pitch, I still have those friends from all those years back, and some of them are my best friends that I play rugby with. There's something about the culture of it and the grassroots of it as a kid in, it can be in the middle of nowhere in a village or a town somewhere, and the grassroots of that culture is great. It's really beautiful in comparison to football and soccer, which, we know what that's like. So, but I'm not taking it away from that sport. It's a great game. But yeah, me, my brother, my family, my other friends, we grew up in rugby, and yeah, it's a beautiful game.
There's this is not a plug or an advertisement, but there is an amazing documentary on the All Blacks, the New Zealand team on Amazon Prime.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so good. Yeah. Well, it's the first kind of, I guess, insight, because they were so secretive, so mysterious, which was a great thing about them. But no one ever really understood or knew how they trained, or more so it's their mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And once that documentary kind of aired, you got a taste of how it is in that camp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. I agree.
I was in Paris last year, September 2023 for the World Cup, and one of my buddies was Australian, and he got a couple tickets to the Australia-Georgia match, and we were watching it at the Stade de France with like 85,000 crazy fans.
Great stadium.
And it was all of Australians.
Yeah, nuts. They're worse than the English. Well, they are a product of the English, so.
A product.
Yeah, they are. Don't worry, I've got very good friends in Australia. They know what I'm saying.
But no one else does. That's how you get canceled. No.
Yeah. God, let's not start that one.
So when did you start getting interested in like the arts and storytelling and because is that like a natural progression for someone to go through in like high school in Cambridge?
Not at all. So I was always interested in sport, and obviously rugby was dominant. I would say I did pretty well at it. I exceeded at it. Generally, when I get hold of something that I like or I want to do, I don't look back. I'm like a dog with a bone. So rugby was one of those things. And because it was physical, I do better with the physicality than I do to somewhat academics. So trying to transfer from a rugby player into entertainment. And also, I have a background in I had a scholarship to a theatre school in London. So I trained to dance, I trained to sing, I trained to act. I started my entertainment journey and career on stage in West End, and then obviously transferred to film and TV and everything else that's come with it. But that transfer initially when I was younger, that was quite a wild one, because my friends are like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be playing the rugby game, and now you're in a dance studio. That was I had a lot of kind of Billy Elliot references coming on there, like you're the real Billy Elliot. And my dad was an engineer; he was a fabricator as well, so it was very much that story. Where it came from, I don't really know. Look, my grandparents were artists. Had a great school that not only had a great athletic program, but had a great theatre and music programs that I took during after school on the weekends. So I was always interested in the arts and creativity. So I guess it was a natural progression. Looking back, connecting the dots.
It's so much more interesting to hear how people in the UK get introduced to film and television, because they always go through the stage and they always start off with like classical training, dance, movement, all these things. Whereas like people here, like you ask them what they got into here, and it's like, oh, I have a lot of Instagram followers and they put me in a movie.
Yeah, it was, especially in LA, right? It's like that's the way forward. But I guess because of its history and being a thespian actor there, everyone always talks about doing it the right way, which is apparently start on the stage and work your way up
and have rich parents,
which I didn't have, so that hence my scholarship. Or else I wouldn't have been able to go to theatre school. There's no way. It was very expensive, and prior to that, I'd already been at university, and I was paying that out of my own pocket and working on the weekends and evenings. So it was a lot, but I wanted it. So I made both things happen, negotiated, and came out with that. And then, started my career on stage in the West End. But the transfer was all good for a few years. It was, from being in, high school, and then being an athlete, and then being really interested in the arts, and then having the shot and the opportunity to go, oh God, I think I could do this. And on that side, I had people saying, I think you can do this, give it a shot. But I just went with it, and it turned out all right.
What was your first play in the West End that you were involved in?
The first one, well, it was the best one. It was Dirty Dancing.
Oh. So
it was at the Aldwych Theatre on the Strand, and I was actually in India at the time doing a completely other a gig for Bollywood films. And prior to that, I'd auditioned twice for it, heard nothing back, thought, let it go. My agent said, just go. Come back, I get a voicemail saying, they want to see you again. So I go in, and this time there was everybody there. So Eleanor Bergstein, who wrote the movie, was there, all her staff, etc. I was going for the role of Johnny, famously created and played by Patrick Swayze.
Amazing.
and then I had another 8 auditions. They really put you through it. Because Eleanor apparently, and I didn't realize this at the time, this is her story. This is she is baby. She went to Kellerman's and she had this kind of fling with this dance instructor. So it's her story. So she was very particular about who we cast. So you had to align with what Patrick was, which is pretty darn hard to do.
He was amazing.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just, and it's funny because just the other day, I randomly was on YouTube and looking through some things, and there's a whole bunch of interviews that I never saw about him, because this was back in 2006. So YouTube was around, but it wasn't the powerhouse that it is now.
True.
So there's some really beautiful interviews with him, and I watched them and I just thought, God, there isn't a lot of alignment. My background in Cambridge was, I grew up on a farm or around farms. He grew up on a ranch in Texas. He played American football. I played rugby. He had trouble or pushback of the transfer from being that to a kind of ballet dancer and going to Broadway. Mine was a very similar journey. So it was funny that I got this audition and then went back and then eventually was awarded the role and got to work with Eleanor and this whole team and this original cast, which was phenomenal. And that really set me off. That taught me so much. I was in a cast with really talented people, and really talented creatives. And we did break world records. It sold $50 million pre-sale tickets before we even opened.
Wow.
So back in 2006, that's a lot. Some shows have done that now, but back then we were on the news for doing that and in previews, and we were sold out for 2 years straight, which is unheard of in a theater. So as an actor, you generally you're cringing, you're kind of holding on, going, are we going to survive? And if you're not selling out, if you're not selling tickets, then your play goes and you're unemployed again. But to know that for 2 years straight, at the very least, that you were employed and you had full houses was crazy.
Now, did you get to stay on for the whole 2 years?
I did, because you can release yourself or they can release you after a year or prior to that, depending on if you have an injury or something. So, but I stayed on. And then when I did leave, I guess because I knew the show so well and had that experience, I did come back for a short while to train the other guys that are coming in for the lift, because the lift is really precarious because you are on a stage that is elevated. This one was elevated about 10 foot above the audience, and then it's elevated again on hydraulics when you have this lift to dramatize that moment at that really big ending time in my life. And then I'm 6'2" with my arms up there, so that's what, we're talking 8 foot. She's way up there. So, and you have to nail that lift. That's what they've come to see, but you've done 2 hours of being on stage and you are just done.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
And then she's running towards you in that dress. You're trying to find her hips, and up she goes, and you just got to nail it. So there's a lot of coaching and holding hands around that moment to get it right. So came back for a short while, and I'm forever grateful for that show and everybody around it. That kind of set me off in my way.
But what were you doing in India? Let's talk about that, because I've been to India. I did a motorcycle show. So I rode a motorcycle all the way around India with my brother. We called it Tough Rides India. And we did 56 days or 54 days, 14,000 kilometers, which is like 10,000 miles all around India.
Wow.
And it was ridiculously dangerous every day.
Yeah, it is a dangerous, especially what you were doing. You were out in, I don't know, God knows where. Everywhere. I'm in Mumbai, basically, shooting a Bollywood movie. But it was a real experience. I got off the plane, got hit with this like carpet full of this heat. It's like, oh my God, I could barely breathe. I was like, oh God. And most days was spent in the studio. But the experience that I left with was, before we went in the studio one day, the guy that looks after us and was touring us around said, just a caution, it's monsoon season. So when you come out, there might be some water, standing water, whatever. I had no idea what monsoon season meant in Mumbai at this time. And so we go in about 9 o'clock. We don't come out till probably 4 or 5. I kid you not, the city was 2.5 feet in water, and it just transformed. There were things, and I generally mean there's people floating in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on this kind of raised, rickety bus thing getting out. It was absolutely nuts. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. We eventually had to stop the filming and not be involved in it anymore and get out because it just got so bad. So we actually flew out. I think it was the next evening. We had to transfer the flights and fly out.
They canceled the whole production.
No, not the production. They canceled us or the part of us being in it. They got some footage, but we had to get out because under the insurance that they couldn't have that that scenario going on. So we had to get out. So yeah, but being in India, it's a wild place.
Yeah.
But as I am, as a man, it's easier to get around. I think it like I said, it's a wild place, and we experienced, like, for the women there, it was harder. It was a harder journey for them, and just random things, like if there's a cow in the road, then everybody and everything stops. I'm like, do you not want to move it? They're like, no, we can't. It's sacred, So we literally sit there for like 50 minutes until that cow moves. So just all these bizarre things that I learned just in the space of about 6 days.
I was when I had to film in India, we flew into Delhi. This was back in like 2012, and we flew into Delhi, and no shit, I got in a taxi, went to the hotel, and like 5 minutes outside of the airport, the first thing I saw was a guy on a little motorcycle, like a 50cc, hit a cow. And he hit that fucking thing, and he went up and down onto the other side. The motorcycle just exploded into like 100 fucking pieces. And the cow just looked at it and was like, and just kept on walking across the street. And I was like, holy shit, where are we?
Yeah, it is a wild place. And that was another thing. I woke up jet lagged. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I walked out. It was just full of tuk-tuks, just rams, and just this scenario on a roundabout where there is no traffic lights or a procedure. Everyone just looks at each other and go, oh, you guys go first. And then when they're fed up, they just go. It's just organized chaos.
It is.
It's but great.
Yeah.
The culture of it, and I loved it. And that was part of my job that I really loved, was to travel with it. I got to travel to a lot of places, a lot of cities that I don't think I would have normally, pinpointed and said, I'm going to go there and spend money there. So, very fortunate, in that sense.
So you said your father was an engineer. Like, what was the family support like at home when you're like, okay, I'm going to be an actor?
It was silent for a while from my dad. I think he always silently struggled with it. He wasn't outrightly, oh my God, what are you doing? This is a disaster. But I think he was concerned somewhat, and silently was in the background waiting for something to happen. I'm not sure what, but so I knew that he had his concerns. My mom, great, fine with it. I'll support you. She loves all that. But yeah, like, I think the transfer was hard, and you're also loyal to your upbringing in a sense, and your family. You're with this industry that I'm in, you'll find a lot of actors and performers are like this. They come from quite normal backgrounds, or everyday 9 to 5 background, and then suddenly if they get that success and they're shoved into the limelight, it's such a void to go back to that and to those people, and then they're looking at you differently. And you've changed as well, because you're in a completely different world, completely different bubble. So to try and balance that can get quite difficult. And then, of course, along the way, unfortunately, you lose friends, or you thought they were friends, because suddenly now, for some reason, they don't like to be associated with you. Not because they don't like you, but because of what you represent now. And because you're changing your wings, because you have to, and you're growing and you're developing and you're evolving, and they haven't. And I'm not saying there's anything bad with that, but perhaps they stayed in that same area and they've got the job that we were all doing anyway before I left. It's difficult now. That relationship becomes difficult, and you just start to drift apart. So you experience a lot of things around it, and I think that tests you to say, do I really want this? Who am I? Looking in the mirror a lot and saying, I'm either going to push forward with this, or I'm just going to fall back on it. So, and of course, mine, like I said, dog with a bone. I loved it. I wanted to do this. So it had a lot of challenges. But in regards to now, my family, friends, everybody, it's great. I mean, they just know what I do, and I think they respect and understand and know that I haven't changed inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most important thing. And I think, especially being in a town like this, that's very difficult. If you become uber successful, uber famous, I think it's just a really difficult thing.
Yeah, it's not easy. It definitely takes some guidance and some help, I think, from people around you just to help you manage all that.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's a hard one, and I see it all the time. I'm in the industry, and now I'm much more, in a sense, behind the scenes as a writer and an actor, but predominantly a writer now, which I really enjoy. But I've seen that transfer happen, and like I said, the guys that we know, that we see on tabloids every day, and I don't know how they deal with it. I'm not sure I want that. That's a tough gig.
Once they hook their tentacles into you, it's pretty tough to get away from that, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And it must be phenomenal at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, to be treated like that, literally the red carpet out everywhere you go, that's addictive. That's a drug. So
I feel bad for Ben Affleck a little bit, though. I mean, I feel like he gets a bad rap.
He gets a lot, right? They always pick someone. They're like, this guy's just going to stay in this lane for us. He's going to be our go-to guy for the tabloids. And he's definitely one of them, bless him.
Sad cigarette man, that's just him.
I love that meme. There's so many different memes now, isn't there, with who's just standing up from Christmas to family to all sorts of things. And God bless him. That's and then there's all sorts of them. I mean, another one is, I'm not going after him so much, but just pop up now. There's obviously Tom Cruise, all these guys. But the reality is, until you meet them and know them, what do we actually know?
Yeah.
We're just reading tabloids.
Yeah.
It's all, to me, it's all BS until I meet these people. I mean, there's some obvious things, right? Can't escape obvious things, but everybody gets their news off Instagram now.
Mm-hmm.
Social media.
Very reliable.
Very reliable. Because Joe from Minnesota, I mean, he's very reliable to post about whoever's going. Do you mean it fascinates me when I ask people, oh God, where'd you hear that? Oh, TikTok or Instagram. From who? I don't know. Let me just check. Yeah, you check that.
Yeah, growing up with the BBC, it must be a little different than when people are quoting their references from TikTok,
right? Yeah, and I now don't watch or listen to mainstream media because that's also, there's another conversation, but somewhat corrupt. And I mean, this is the world we live in. I think you have to have a certain amount of you have to open your eyes a little bit and realize how this world is structured and what's really going on. So,
well, I think all the politicians and all the media are pretty confident in their role of just kind of duping all of us in some way, shape, or form. And I always tell people, like, they're all just magicians, right? Like, they're showing you this thing here, but there's always something going on over here.
Yeah.
And it's a little exhausting.
They're puppet masters, right? And it depends on who you want to be the puppet and who's the master. So.
And we've just had a presidential assassination attempt.
Yeah. It's, what, America, in comparison to England, it's like every day is like waking up in a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the next episode. What's going to happen? They always leave you on a cliffhanger, and then you have to wake up the next day. There's another episode. It's incredible. It's the best TV series there ever is. It's the reality and the real life of America.
Yes.
And its news and its tabloids. It's just phenomenal. I mean, it's just very entertaining.
I tell my friends who live in other parts of the world that it's like living in a circus, and it's like you can't get out. It's like, you open up one door, you're like, fuck, it's a circus. You close the door. He's like, you run down the hallway, you open up another door, fuck, it's the circus. You close it, you run down there. It's like that Matrix scene where he's like looking for the key with the door.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. You're like, I always want to get out, but you can't get out, and they just pull you back in. Yeah. But it's at the same time, like I said, it's a phenomenal place. It's an amazing place, and I've enjoyed the cultural difference. Both sides of the tail of that, which is obviously here you're much more, in a sense, loud about everything in comparison to the stiff upper lip of British.
You have to be loud if you live in the U.S.
Well, of course you do.
Yeah.
Well, just I think being American in general, but it's the culture, right? I think it's unconscious that you are loud, but in comparison to someone who's brought up in England, where especially in my generation, a child is seen, not heard kind of thing. It's a completely different kind of culture and a culture shock. So,
what was it like physically working in the West End in Dirty Dancing as the lead role, which is quite a physical role, having to dance, having to lift, having to really move? What was it like going from like rugby to doing like 6 shows a week in the West End?
So it was 8 shows a week.
Fuck, sorry.
Yeah, in the first year, and I'll come back to that because they had to change that. I don't think it. Yeah, I think it was due to the some legality. I'll go there now. Basically, we had a double show on a Friday, so we had 8 shows a week. Do a double show on a Friday and 2 shows on a Saturday. The matinee on a Saturday would be, I want to say it was around 2:00.
That's such a grind. 8 shows a week.
Yeah, and you get one day off, and that one day is really recovery. And then just everyday stuff like maybe see your family, do your washing, God forbid, relax, and then you're back to it. Because also a show like this, its turnaround is epically fast and it's very aggressive on the body.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a lot of people in physio and injuries. So you would have to rehearse in the understudies in the day. So you would generally also be going to theatre about 11 to 12. You'd do a show, rehearse a show, you'd put someone in, which is called just a run through, or and then you'd have a break, and then you'd actually do the show. So sometimes in terms of shows, you could be doing 10, 11, 12. So physically, it was very, very demanding. There is a difference between obviously being a rugby player and a dancer, but the demand on yourself is quite similar. And I don't think people realize that. And but obviously, being a dancer, you have to be much more nimble, graceful in comparison to a rugby player. Yet, as I say that the game has changed massively in terms of, if you look at the body shape of a rugby player now in comparison to when I played, a prop was definitely a prop. And in my day, they were kind of a little bit overweight, tubby. You're like, oh, you're definitely a prop.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, I can't sometimes tell the difference if I look at the All Blacks or any international team. It's pretty, they have to be in phenomenal shape.
Everyone's just 6'6" and 280.
Yeah, it's just, and they're just ripped. And it's crazy. So, but the physicality, I've never been stronger, fitter in my life. I look back at that time, and I was lucky, they had the money because we were doing well as a show. I had free physio, I had a free trainer, I had free gym membership. They really looked after you because, of course, they wanted you to perform. But 8 shows a week was a lot. You're exhausted Sunday, and then you're back to it, and that's year round. You don't stop. Few days off around Christmas, but that's about it. So, yeah, very, very demanding on the body. I saw a lot of bodies, and I mean literally snap. We had a lot of broken bones, a lot of pop knees. It's very heavy on partner work, as it is in the film. So you're doing that 8 shows a week. You're lifting girls above your head. You're dropping them through. You're trying to catch them. Everyone's very close together. We had girls being knocked out on knees and all sorts of things. It was pretty mental.
Probably more injuries there than in your rugby career.
Oh God, yeah. There's some major injuries. Probably, I would say, nearly every week. So the understudies weren't really understudies; they were on all the time. So it's just this massive rotation. But again, talking about culture is interesting because it became such a family. We were really tight. And people in this industry will understand this, that in West End, Broadway, wherever, the culture of your show actually bleeds into you unconsciously. So obviously Dirty Dancing is very, in a sense, family orientated and uplifting, and especially towards the end, it's joyous. It's a happy ending. Whereas if you do something like Chicago, it's very dark and and the cast, you'll find out if you go out with other casts and you're having a drink or whatever, you'll realize that they become that. It soaks into you. So the family that I found in that theatre and in that time, I'm still very, very close with a lot of them, because you share more time with them in that theatre than you are in your own home or family outside of that or anything else. So that's why they become so kind of tight knit, and they just stay in that circle. So yeah.
And how do you? I mean, what kind of offers do you get coming off of a 2-year run doing Dirty Dancing, and then how do you choose your next project?
Well, I knew I wanted to, after that, it inspired me because I actually spent a fair bit of time with Eleanor Bergstein, who wrote the movie. And that was when I got the bug of writing. And, I didn't really focus on writing before then. I was one-dimensional. I was just an actor, a performer. And that's what I was interested in. But spending time with her, because she really wanted to relay all of her experience about her story and how Dirty Dancing came about, and Patrick and Jennifer. And she spoke a lot about those two and told me a lot of things that, probably a lot of people don't know, and actually how difficult it was for them. And they didn't really get on at the time. And everything that went on with that film is pretty incredible. It even got made, and then it turned into this phenomenon. So from there, I really inspired me to go into TV and film. So that's kind of what I did. So out of that, I did a few other things, but eventually got into doing TV and film as an actor. And then I started to write and assist actually other people on productions, whether that be on theatre or in TV, which then obviously eventually brought me out here to LA. So like I said, right now I'm predominantly seen as a writer actor. That's what I do.
I think you hit the sweet spot, man, because I feel like after like 2006, 2008, 2010, like the UK really got a lot of attention for making really high quality stuff. I mean, look at what HBO did. I mean,
right.
That's just an insane, like, Game of Thrones and things like that was just incredible, unbelievable.
Yeah.
All done out of Northern Ireland. I think it was spectacular.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then obviously the other productions that are great, like The Crown. That's been running for God knows how long now. But
what's your favorite one now?
What TV series? Yeah. Oh,
I love Slow Horses with
we've been watching that. It's great. I mean, Gary Oldman he was born to play that, wasn't he? Yeah. I mean, just whoever. I wonder, the writer, I'd love to ask him, did you have that in mind? Did you have him in mind? Because some people do. They're generally like, I just know he's going to nail that. And that's just Gary Oldman in a nutshell, when he was talking that he loves it because he doesn't have to bother to be presentable. He just rocks up with a cigarette in his mouth and just starts shooting.
Coffee,
sweat stains, just farting everywhere. Like, it's every guy's dream.
Yeah.
Slow Horse is definitely up there. I often find myself going back referencing older stuff because as much as there are some great productions around, I think we're also getting lost because there's so much out there to choose from. So you switch on Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu. These
and there's a lot of misses.
There's a lot of misses, and that's why we've had these strikes and all this. Again, it's more of a long form conversation, but there's so much out there that is such a miss, and there's too much content to choose from. There's been too much money spent on a lot of crap for multiple reasons. So I think now they've experienced that, they've seen that, and they're trying to pull it back and do a 180 on it. So yeah, we'll see where that ends up. But it's been interesting watching and being involved in what's going on here in Hollywood, and how that's having an effect on everybody else who's trying to make a film, trying to make a TV series. Right, it's all changing with technology as well.
What was it like last year going through the writer's strike and the actor's strike? Because I mean, that actually delayed. I was going to come to LA actually much earlier than I did. I had been planning to make the move for quite a while. But then the actor's strike and the writer's strike kicked off, and then I was just like, I'm going to sit this one out. And then I just showed up in November, kind of when it all was done and dusted.
Yeah. Smart for you. For me, I've got to be honest, it did it impact me? Not really. I was very fortunate. At the time, I was actually in the middle of selling one of my scripts, and which is now in early development. So because I wasn't tied into the WGA at the time, being a British writer, that I missed that bullet. So, but I have friends that were in it and really amongst it, and it was very, very painful. And again, I think the language is lost in it. I don't think this was about what was in the headlines. It's partly to do with technology. It's partly to do with some other stuff. It's I think it just got a little bit muddy. But
once every 10 years, they always renegotiate. So it felt like it was time anyway.
Yeah, they have to. And I think this agreement is, I don't know what it is, 3.5, 4 years. So we'll see what happens then. But like I said, everything always has to change. It has to evolve. You either accept it and roll with it, and or you don't. And that's just the way I see it. It's here. It's going to happen. We can't turn it off. Can't turn back. Just you've got to move forward with it and evolve with it, and see the positive in it. Because you can always look at the negative. But what's that going to do?
Yeah.
So
the whole time, I was here in LA last summer during the writer's strike and the actor's strike. I just came to check it out and figure out where I might want to live and stuff like that. And I was doing some voiceover work next to Sony Studios, and I would just park right across the street from the entrance, and there was just 100 people out picketing every fucking day in the middle of the day in the heat, and I'm like, that's terrible.
Yeah. It's and good for them. I mean, it was and there was some really big profiles actually that showed up as well, and that was great for them as well. But yeah, I tend not to believe what I'm reading in the headlines, like I said. So, but I'm glad it's over. I'm glad, from what I understand, to a certain extent, everybody got what they wanted, I think. But like you said, we're going to be back here in 4 years' time, and we're going to go again because that's how it works, you know. But in the meantime, you know, I just focus on me. I just focus on what I'm doing and passionate about, and that generally tends to work. And not trying to get too lost in the weeds.
Well, I've had a lot of producers, actors, directors sitting, you know, in your chair over the last 6-7 months, and it's amazing how this year has been kind of a disappointment because, you know, making it through COVID and not going bankrupt or you know, having to move back in with your parents, as we all have maybe had to do during this creative.
I've been there.
Yeah. And then, you know, to come through COVID and then to come through the writer's strike and then to come through the actor's strike, I think we all just expected like 2024 to be just fucking Christmas. Like, here we go.
Yeah,
it just hasn't been.
No, it hasn't. It's the aftermath, right? You know, because we went through the pandemic and it was just a fucking wild situation. And we're only learning off the back of that now. But like what the strike will do, there'll be a void in content soon. Because it was for quite a while and it was a writers and actors strike. So a lot of productions shut down and then eventually just couldn't start back up again. So now there's going to be soon a fairly big void. And now we need to get new stuff in. So like you said, we are now just feeling that aftermath and then and now dealing with, you know, politics of who's going to be the next president and everything else going on in the world in Europe. And it's just, you know, sometimes I just switch on the news and I just go, oh my God.
No,
it's crazy. And it's weird in the time that we live in because you look on your phone and I'm scrolling through and I try not to spend too much time on it because it is addictive, but scrolling through Instagram, it's just, you know, you see really terrible, sad, horrific videos of what's going on. But it feels really weird. I'm essentially looking at a war here, which I am, or close to World War III, if you listen to the headlines. But I'm just scrolling through Instagram, having a coffee, and I'm off to work. It's very weird. Whereas in the comparison to when you look at the history of World War I and World War II, where the world literally was involved, it's just a really weird time to live in. A great time to live in, but it's just bizarre.
Yeah, I agree. And it's even like for me. So what happened for me was I was living in China until 2019, and then I moved to Dubai, and then I was very lucky to get out of China before COVID hit. But then I was in Dubai when the Ukraine-Russian war started. And that was a crazy place to be because a lot of Ukrainians and Russians live in Dubai.
Right.
And then when the war started, a lot of Ukrainians moved to Dubai to get out of the war, and a lot of Russians moved to Dubai to get out of the global sanctions because they couldn't open a bank account, they couldn't use a credit card.
Completely shut down. Yeah.
So a lot of them came to Dubai, got resident, and the property prices went like crazy. But it was strange, like Dubai became like little Moscow overnight.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so that's why now I see all this, the real estate market there is apparently huge, and that's probably a seed of it.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Actually. Well, the number one way to wash like ill-gotten gains is through real estate, right? So
of course, yeah.
So that's what Dubai is. That like people take money from other parts of the world doing other nefarious things and then throw it into Dubai real estate.
Right.
And that's why the property market there is just pumping. And then of course now you actually have enough residents there to fill those units and stuff, and the rental prices just went crazy. And it really changed actually. I loved Dubai I started going in like 2016 because I was like flying through on my way to other places while I was filming all the time.
Yeah.
And then I would just go for 2-3 days, stay at a nice hotel, enjoy the Persian Gulf, eat some nice meals and then leave again, right?
Yeah.
And from like 2016 until like COVID,
right,
it was like just a sleepy backwater, and I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
But then when COVID hit, and Europe had a really harsh lockdown,
yes,
Dubai stayed open. So all the people with Europe, they all just worked remotely from Dubai and partied and
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a nice middle ground in terms of to fly out to the rest of Europe or wherever you're going. It's a pretty good middle ground.
It's a hub. Like I was traveling 300 days a year, and it saved my life because getting in and out of China was a nightmare. But Emirates did the job. I mean, they have great connections. They've got great flights all over the world, and it's the perfect place to be if you're like a global nomad like I was at that time.
Yeah, I've never been. I need to go. I've heard a lot of good things, and I just need to get my boots on the ground there and have a look around.
It's hard to live there. Like I found like 5-6 days a month was about my limit, and then because it's kind of like living in Las Vegas. Like everyone's showing up to have like their best weekend ever.
Yes, Vegas. Yeah, and I've been to Vegas too many times actually.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, and also the kind of standard of living there, the rules and regulations of the culture there I've heard can be, depending on who you are, it can be quite harsh as well. But I don't know. I've not been.
Well, this is my first time living in a democracy, like since I was 22. Yeah.
So you're just like, wow, this is amazing.
People can say whatever they want.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I moved to China when I was 22, and then I stayed there for 18 years. So I kind of like grew up as an adult in China.
Right.
And of course you can't talk politics there.
No.
And then you get into the Middle East, and you've got all these, fiefdoms and families that are running the show, controlling the entire economy and stuff like that. And then, they do it in probably one of the better ways. I mean, I've also traveled all through Africa and filmed all through Africa, and those governments really aren't doing much for their people. So at least Dubai is, keeping things safe for, allowing people to live out normal lives.
Sure. And I think it's great that, obviously you've traveled so much and you've been in the real weeds of everything. So you really see it for what it is. And I'm all about that, speaking to people and conversing with people that have really been there and experienced people there, the culture and what it's like. I don't think we have enough of that, but like I said, it's probably hard to move around. But I was interested of why and when and how you came about to be who you are as an adventurer, and then started traveling around the world, and then started making these documentaries of why. Obviously, because you said you grew up in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
don't hold that against me.
I will not. Actually, my stepdaughter goes to school there. I love it. I go a lot. But I was wondering where the jump happened from, whatever it was you were doing, or was it from a child that you're like, I know I want to do this?
No, I mean, so my father was an Olympian. I guess we can start there. Yeah. So sports was huge in my life from like the age of 3. And my dad was a water polo player for Canada in the 1972 Olympics in Munich.
Oh, Munich.
Yeah. Where the terrorist attack happened and the Palestinians killed the Israeli.
Was he close to that?
You could hear the gunshots. Yeah. Because they were in the Olympic Village, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so he got me into sports. So he got me swimming at an early age, and then I started playing water polo, but didn't really like it. And then I got into basketball and I loved it. So, but the problem is when you do a high-level sport like you did with rugby, you don't really develop any hobbies.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Sure. It's just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I had all these other things I liked doing. So when my career finally ended at the end of my collegiate career, I wasn't good enough to play professional at that stage. I was like super depressed, and I had nothing.
Yeah.
Like I had nothing. Like I studied political science in university.
Right.
And I was a basketball player.
Yeah.
And then
that's all you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fucked. And I was just like, and then, in my summer jobs, when I was working in the summers to make money to go to school and stuff like that, I had all these jobs in various financial institutions and things like that, because my father was in banking and he helped me make some introductions, and, I interviewed and stuff like that. And I didn't really see anyone in that environment where I was like, that's the life I want. There was something kind of not sitting well with me, even at that early stage. And then in my second year of university, I took a class on Chinese history and politics, because, when you play basketball in university, you play Friday, Saturday. You usually have to travel all day Friday, sometimes by bus. Then you come back on Sunday. So you always want to have your Fridays free. So because of the way the schedule worked out, I needed to have my Friday free. So I ended up taking this class on like Tuesday at noon, and it was Introduction to Chinese History and Politics. And that just set my brain on fire.
Wow, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how things work out when you look back, connect the dots, right?
Yeah. And then I was just like, and then after school, I was just like, well, and then I took another class about China. And then I was like, well, if I'm just going to live in Toronto the rest of my life and do what other people are doing, I'm going to go to China first.
Right.
And I went there, and it was just like a fucking brain melt. Like everything was cool. It was exactly the experience at the exact right time. I was just depressed enough in my normal life to just grab onto that. And I loved it. And then I started writing and doing photography. And then that's how I got into storytelling. And I didn't even know I had these interests
Right, but I mean, the things that you've done, like scaling some mountains and going on some serious expeditions, that just happened naturally, just because you wanted to explore, or
No, so first I started working for like local expat magazines in China, because there's like some English magazines for the foreigners that live there. Then I was working out of Hong Kong and Singapore for regional magazines. Then I was airline magazines. Then I got into like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Time Music, Fortune, which was great.
Yeah.
But at the same time all this was happening, I was living in Shanghai, which is like a city of like 30 million. And it was intense living in a city with 30 million people, and I didn't always like it. So I started going out to Tibet, to various parts of Tibet, and going hiking with my friend, Brandon, who is a writer as well. And we worked together on a lot of stories. And then we started doing these travel stories where we would do these like 10, 14, 20-day hikes out in Tibet with guides and donkeys. And, we have like it was a whole caravan, and it was amazing. And then I was like, and then after a while, so what happened was when Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008, obviously lots of horrible things happened to people, but it also destroyed the print publishing industry completely.
Right.
And at that time, none of these magazines and newspapers had a web presence or had a way to monetize. So like, my day rate in 2010 was like 1/3 or 1/4 of my day rate in 2007.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
So it just wasn't economical anymore. And then I was like, well, I really love this trekking stuff, and I think I can make a TV show about it, because like I'm a photographer, I understand storytelling, I understand composition, I've done enough writing, I think we can do this. So we just went out and did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then people liked it, and then we just did more, and then and then people gave us more money, and then we got more creative. Like probably the coolest episode we ever did was we walked like 12 or 14 days through the Badain Jarain Desert in northern China, right on the border with Mongolia.
Wow.
So it's one of the most famous deserts in the world that like no one's ever heard of, because they have the highest sand dunes in the world. And so we walked like 140 miles across this desert with nothing but a camel caravan. So like 5 camels just carried water. Yeah, and then the rest.
You just camped out there, everything. You just have
then there's nothing there. There's no roads, no villages, nothing.
Sad.
Yeah.
And nothing lives out there.
Nothing.
Wow.
It was epic.
You must have got some epic photographs.
Yeah. Oh no, it's a whole episode of TV.
I'm going to watch that. That's incredible. I love stuff like this.
46 minutes of just breathtaking.
Wow.
The drone stuff, the aerial stuff, the camel. We had this great guide. His name was Hasamong. He didn't speak any English or Chinese. He just spoke Mongolian. And we had the most beautiful like friendship, but we just had zero verbal communication.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can work out, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you sometimes when people speak the same language, it can not be so good.
Yeah. But anyway, so then that kind of led up to COVID, and then nothing's really been going on since COVID. And the way people are making TV now is totally different, because like in 2018, a producer would get a budget and divide it up into 10 and give it to 10 storytellers.
Yeah.
And now they get the budget and they put it into one Marvel superhero.
Yes.
And they make TV out of that.
Yes.
And there's just nothing to go around, man. It's crazy.
No, everything's a little bit tired on the horse right now. And they need to freshen things up, which I think they're trying to do. But that's pretty incredible. And the fact that so your dad was an Olympic athlete. That's interesting.
Yeah. And it got me into sports. My brother as well. Like we were both into it. My brother's a little younger than I am, but we both kind of rode that train, and it was beautiful. My best friendships. Yeah. Great way to go through college, as an athlete. And
what do you think of the Paris Olympics so far?
I haven't watched any of it.
Me neither.
No.
I watched a bit of the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
And they didn't get much luck on that, unfortunately.
No, it rained. I don't know why they didn't do cloud seeding like every other country does, and make it rain the day before the opening ceremony.
And then we go, they just didn't, and classic French, I don't think they rehearsed.
No.
It's going to be fine. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
$1.8 billion to clean up the river in Paris for the triathlon.
Is that right?
And then they couldn't even run it because it was still so dirty. $1.8 billion in taxpayer dollars to clean up what's the Seine or the Seine. And they still couldn't run it. It's unbelievable.
LA's watching right now and learning, hopefully.
I just read today that there's going to be at the end of the closing ceremonies in 2 weeks time or whatever.
Right, 2 weeks.
Tom Cruise is going to do this thing with the flame. He's going to like jump out of a plane and like, I don't know, something to do with the Hollywood sign, like to pass the torch from Paris
I'm
to.
going to watch that.
Yeah, we have to, right?
Have to. Yeah. He's going to just fly all these airplanes and helicopters and everything else he can do. He's incredible.
He's pretty badass.
Yeah, he's very badass. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that then. Yeah, yeah. So you must be looking forward for it to be coming here in LA.
I don't know. I don't really do anything here.
No,
Like I kind of exist.
Yeah.
I have a podcast.
right. But everything you do is away from here or away from your home, but in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, completely. So it's just like a hub, and
Yeah.
I've had the chance to meet some amazing people, but it's mostly in this room.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I've been so grateful.
But that's LA as well. I find like where I live near the beach, I didn't know this before I came, and I've got good friends here, and they said, "Oh, where are you moving to?" So I say, "Oh, I'm going to be kind of Venice, Santa Monica area." Like, "Oh, well, we're never going to see you." I'm like, "What do you mean, never going to see you?" They live in the Studio City, or I like, "What do you mean?" Because in London, you jump on the tube.
Yeah.
Someone could text me and say, "Hey, bud, do you want a beer? I'm going to be in so-and-so." I could just literally jump on the tube. I'll be there in 20 minutes. It's really easy to get around. Here, obviously, public transport, not so much. And it's a wildly massive, vast place. It's like 7 cities merged together, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I didn't understand when people like talked about the 405 and what do you mean why are you all talking about roads? They all whenever they want to meet each other, like, are you taking the 405 to the San Vicente to the whole? Have you seen that? What's that episode? SNL, the Californians.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Have you seen that? You need to see the Californians. It is hilarious. It's exactly this. They're talking about how they're going to get from one place to the other, and it's pretty incredible. I didn't understand this until I moved to LA.
Yeah.
And it's true. I don't see anybody outside of my kind of neighborhood because I'm like, forget that. It's an hour and a half journey, but you only live 3 miles away.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. It's crazy.
I think there was a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode way back in the day with Larry David where the whole friendship broke up because they were taking turns going from the east side to the west side to meet each other, and then one day it was like, "Oh, no, I can't go to the east side. I need you to come out to me again." And he's like, "No, but I did it last time." And then that was it. We didn't talk for 5 years.
So true. Honestly, I have a really good friend who was in the show with me. He lives in the Valley, and
Valley, yeah.
We see each other, maybe twice a year. It's which is bad, but it is what it is. But it's true,
It's just such dead time, like sitting in the car.
It is, yeah. I mean, I guess you can listen to things and podcasts and make a phone call, but after a while, like, there's only so much that you can do.
I do thank you for making the trip out here, by the way.
Of course, yeah. Well, it's not too shabby place coming in. Yeah, it's all good. So
we'll have a whiskey after.
Sounds good to me.
So Dirty Dancing, West End, you're crushing it, 2-year run, and then you decide to go into film and television. What was film and television like in the UK, and why did you make the move to LA?
So film and television in the UK.
Because I could talk about myself for the rest of the 2 hours.
Right, let's do it.
But now just continue.
I think it started off as the usual route that everybody's heard before, which is it is hard. It's difficult. There's a lot of gaps in between. But I was writing in between that and becoming a much better writer. You start off writing shit basically because you don't know what you're doing. And then you meet other writers and you go into writing rooms and you just keep getting better. So I was merging that with being casted in certain shows from like Black Mirror to, and then I was doing various other films. And of course, these productions coexist. America's kind of come into film in Pinewood or London and vice versa. So I did a few films that were co-production. And like I said, I got into the actual production side of shows. I actually was asked to put on events using West End performers in some really kind of underground renowned clubs, one called Adam Street in London. So I was essentially the artistic director for that, which I really enjoyed because I knew a lot of people, I knew performers, I knew who was the best. I also knew a lot of crew members, which is really important. Anybody in the industry from film to stage, they're the ones that keep the cogs turning.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed that. So I was doing a lot of things, but this was a point in my life where I was figuring out again who I was, where I wanted to go, who do I identify as in that sense. So after having a bunch of roles in TV and film, but not really having wild success, if that makes sense, wasn't enough. The writing really started to come through, and I started to create an audience for it in a sense, and people started to say, actually, this works pretty good, and I'm going to pass it to this person. But it's not like America. There was a lot of things when I came here that were not true. Somewhat I was disappointed, but the thing that stays true in this country is that you guys hustle, and the gates are open if you want to hustle here. Whereas in England or perhaps Europe, because of its history and its hierarchy and a class system, not to say you don't have a class system here, you do. You've adopted that, but it's very different over there. It's like, where did you go to school? What's your last name? Who's your family? So
fuck you.
Exactly. So it's like, come here, and as long as you've got the talent and the will and you want to put in the hard work, people are like, well, what have you got? Let me see it. And if it's good enough, they're like, let's roll, let's go, let's try it. And
how good's your bathroom selfie?
Yeah, just I don't do selfies. I like no. So yeah, that was the greatest thing of coming here. That then it really started to open the doors. And like I said, last year I sold a screenplay, and funnily enough, because I was so impressed about you and now your father being an Olympic athlete, the script is based around the Olympics.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's why I'm taking a great interest in what's going on in Paris, and obviously it's coming to LA 28. So, so yeah, that was kind of a period of me building myself back up again, coming out of being on stage and having success there. But then I didn't realize that writing was going to become my thing. But of course, I'm a storyteller. Mm-hmm. The essence of everything that I do is I'm just telling a story. And I think I'm very good at telling a story as a writer. Everything else that comes with it, I still have to work hard on, and the structure. But I think I'm a very, very good storyteller, and that's what I did on stage, is what I do in front of the camera. And that's what it's about. People want to see great stories and be connected to it or escape with it. So that's what I put on the page. Generally, I focus on things that are biographical or real life content. And it's going pretty well.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
far.
Well, I mean, like, how old were you when you were like, it's funny, you said like you had all this success doing Dirty Dancing in the West End, and then you were still trying to figure out who you were, and then being like, oh, I need to go to LA.
Yeah. Well, I think it's constant.
Yeah. I constant evolution, right? We always have to keep growing.
100%. I think it's when you just rest on your laurels or you sit in that, and there are people that do that who are very good, but I was always curious. I mean, it's kind of, I was always curious about what's next, what's out there, what can I do, what is he doing, what is she doing? Even in the theater, I wouldn't rest, even though my schedule was crazily busy. I would stay behind or get there early. I would ask the crew, like, how does that work? How does that work, in terms of the lighting and the stage? And we had a lot of hydraulics on there. I was very interested in that, how the whole production really worked. And being a writer now is really interesting because I get to sit in meetings and have Zoom calls with all sorts of people, executives, producers, everybody, again, the cogs that turn a film. And it's just phenomenal how anything ever gets made. It's like a miracle. It really is. Yeah. And I never really understood that. And I never really appreciated the people behind the scenes. And I do mean in terms of, the producers, the executive studios. I know they get a lot of bad press, but they take huge risks, huge risks. They're giving up the money.
And it's stressful.
It's really stressful. And it's under their title. And generally you're staying with a film for years. And then you got to release it. And then you're just like, fingers crossed this thing works out and we get the audience that we want. And, it's a lot, so everybody involved is taking a risk. And I just think it's just a miracle that anything gets made. So
it's, I recently joined the Producers Guild of America.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, I've been going to some of the events and meeting other producers and just understanding like how hard it is to make something and just how long it takes to arrange the financing and make sure that the risk is at the right level and making sure that the key talent is happy and getting the director to sign on. And it's just like, there's so many moving pieces. I think if you're a feature film director, you're probably, one of the greatest acrobatic artists of all time because you're constantly just walking on a tightrope.
100% every single day. Yeah, it's a lot, But was it Steven Spielberg who said it? You got to be crazy or passionate to do this, or probably both. Yeah. You have to be, because why would you? It is nuts. From the outside, some people look at it as, you are following your passion. Yeah, we are, but it can be really hard work. There's a lot of risk involved, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm saying that now. There's some days where I'm swearing blind, but that's just part of the job. Yeah, it's part of the gig.
I kind of gave up a long time ago on like the whole collaborative storytelling element. Like I remember.
I like how you said that. So
there's going to be a story here.
Yeah, I was going to say I could see that coming.
So I remember like I had this idea way back in the day of like wanting to ride a motorcycle all the way around China, right? And because I knew China from my photography days working with the New York Times, I'd worked in every province. I was arrested and detained in pretty much every province in China.
Yeah.
It was they have such like
Good reason or just random?
just there's such a cat and mouse game between like journalists and the Communist Party.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
They see you coming a mile off, don't they? Yeah.
And they even track you and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's
that is true.
Yeah. The moment you book an airplane ticket, you're on the radar.
Oh, excellent. Good.
So we had to drive a lot of places just to stay under the radar, and we had to use other cars instead of the official cars because they get the license plate at all the toll.
Oh my God, like Jason Bourne.
Yeah, it was actually just to get a story out because you know the Chinese Communist Party wants to be everything and all to their people, which is great, fine, right?
Right.
But don't say crazy shit and then expect us to just be like, yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, let's roll with that.
So like, for example, back in like 2005 or 6, one of these years, you know, they had avian flu, right? And then the president of China at the time, I can't remember, I think it was Hu Jintao, he came out and said, we're going to inoculate 6 billion poultry birds in China for avian flu. And we were just sitting there like, no, I mean, that's not going to fucking happen. And then so we went out to this county. We found the county in China that has the most poultry birds, that has the biggest industry. And we went out there and we sat next to a veterinary clinic and we waited for the 2 little guys to get on their motorcycle and go out to a farm with their little bag of vaccines. And we sat there and we got there and we talked to the farmer and we're like, do you mind if we observe? And he said, fine. And we talked to the vet people. They said, fine. And can we take pictures? Yeah, no problem. And they inoculated like 1,000 birds that afternoon when we were there. But they used the one needle.
The one needle. My God.
Yeah. So if the first bird had avian flu, then all of them have avian flu.
Yeah.
But that's just that's how China works, right?
Yeah.
Like they say something big in Beijing, and then it has to filter down to the countryside, and it never does filter down correctly.
Right.
Because there's a sophistication difference. These people are not worldly, like they're they live in a huge country. They don't get to travel, like they don't really understand how things work. So when these and they don't ask questions. That's the number one thing. Like if something comes from above, you just do it.
Yeah. It's not a democracy. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a front page New York Times story that we did.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was fun. But it was cat and mouse. It did get exhausting, and then it was great to be able to transition. So I asked my brother, I was like, Colin, let's do something in China together. And he's like, let's ride a motorcycle around China. And like, great, okay. I know every province. I know how to get around. I speak some Chinese. I know how to get the bikes. My friend can film it. Chad ended up doing that show and then doing every single show I've ever worked on together. So Chad Ingram, my director of photography, absolutely amazing. And then, but I went to like Discovery Channel, Nat Geo, BBC, blah, 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 blah. No.
Here.
And then I was just like, well, is there a world that we live in where I make this by myself and sell it? And then someone said, yeah, like you can have a finished product and then hand it over to an agent. And there's sales agents in the UK that are specialized in selling English language films globally and or episodic television. And I was just like, okay, that's my path. So we just paid for the whole thing ourselves.
Wow.
And then we were lucky enough to sell it. And then we were lucky enough to get a few sponsors for the next one and a few sponsors for the next one. And it would just snowball. And now I'm in a position where I don't talk to anyone. I raise my money independently.
Yeah.
And then I go out and shoot, and then I give it to the agents in London, and then they sell it, and then I just get quarterly royalties coming back.
Amazing.
And then the corporate partners that I have, we do some speaking engagements after. We tell people about the adventure. They're happy. I'm happy. I got to make my show. But I don't really see any money coming back from it for like a year later.
No, yeah, it takes a while, yeah. But that's great that you're raising the money independently because then you're not controlled by whoever's going to be giving you money like everybody else where, you want to do your thing. You want to be you and go out there and film gritty stuff and edit it how you think it should be edited. And instead now we live in a world, I live in the world of, a lot of productions are controlled by 10, 20 people who all want their say.
Yeah.
Quite rightly, because they've probably put $1 million on the table or something of that sort. So the fact that you were doing it like that, that's the way forward.
I think so. I really liked it because, I would come to LA, right? And this was after I'd had maybe 10 or 15 hours worth of stuff in the market. So I didn't have nothing, right? And I would come to LA and I would have development meetings and they'd be like, what about in episode 4 if you lose your motorcycle or someone steals your motorcycle?
I just have to
I was like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm like, it'll be fine by itself. Like, whatever's going to happen to me in this third world country where I'm going to be filming is going to be dramatic enough. We don't have to add in drama and
motorcycling through China and deserts. It's going to be dramatic. Don't worry.
Yeah. And that was before drones, right? Like when we filmed in Brazil, I went all through the Amazon, and the best part of that was we had drones in 2015. That was the first series we used when we had.
Can you fly? You can fly drone. You can film with a drone.
Well, I have guys that do it.
Right.
I can fly a little bit, but I had so it was great. So I could like ride through the Amazon rainforest and have the drone up above getting all the shots. And of course, the Amazon is super flat.
Yeah.
So you can just see for fucking miles. It was amazing. And that was like the first time where we got proper sponsorship. We had like some real money to play with. Like we, got a drone. We really filmed Tough Rides Brazil nicely. And still you come back and the trip destroys you, and the 6 episodes are ridiculous, and you get stuck in the mud and get rained on 6 times a day, and still like they're like, oh, it would have been great if like you got robbed somewhere, and I'm like, no, it wouldn't have been great because they would have taken all the fucking camera equipment
and maybe yourself.
Yeah. So it's just like
that would have been the last episode
ever. Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just couldn't handle like. I don't know. Maybe it's a fault of mine. It's just like compromising or whatever. But I couldn't like bow down to that.
No,
like,
good for you.
Yeah,
for you. I really think that's the way forward. And I think we're realizing that now, that not everything has to have a purposeful drama to it. It is what it is, and if that's what you like, that's great. I mean, I watch a guy. I've been watching him for 3 or 4 years now. He started something. Where is he from? Netherlands. Martin Doolard.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote, he produced this book and video content on YouTube called 2 Years on a Bike.
Okay, massive.
So he rode from Canada all the way down to Argentina, just him and his bike, literally. But just really raw, gritty, beautiful footage, drone footage. And now he's bought 2 like old farmhouses, outbuildings in Italy, and he's doing them up and he's filming. I just watched that. It's just great. But that's where I watch my content because it's real. Via YouTube, instead of a lot of the stuff that's still on kind of what I would call like a terrestrial TV. That's very managed, right? It's got helicopter parents on it all the time of like something needs to happen. We need a cliffhanger for the next one, and I think a lot of people are over it. Yeah, good for you, man. That's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching some of these.
It's been interesting, and obviously the streaming platforms have really helped, not because they commission the work, but also because they'll take it afterwards and stream it, right? And then you get a cost per click or cost per view kind of thing. So it does kind of generate some revenue, but it's been amazing to be here because now like, oh, you live in the United States, like, and then you get a speaking event, like maybe some guy's watching my show with his son on a Sunday afternoon, and then he's like, oh my God. And then he emails me and it's like, I run a company, like come out to our corporate event and do like, talk about this show.
Yeah.
And it's great because I'm here. It's like an hour flight, right?
Yeah.
It's, I think if you the thing I didn't realize before, I like obviously going to China when I was young, got me out of the internship garbage that goes on in this city where you end up like you're spending your first 2 years getting coffee for people. Like, fuck that. Like, I was making shit like right away.
Yeah.
But then now it's like, if you really do make English language content, you do really have to have a presence here in some way, shape or form.
Yeah. You do. Yeah. Especially in how you're doing it. And you have to have a presence on, social media is what it is. I think it's a great platform actually for business and, people to view you, see your content, to be developed into something else. Yeah. That's great, man. That's great.
So, I mean, do you miss acting full time? Do you miss the dancing and the theater? Is writing really filling your entire soul with everything you need? I'm just curious.
Yeah. No, it is for the most part. It really is. Like I said, I didn't see it coming. So, but I can, if I'm in the flow, I'm in the groove. I can sit down for nearly 8 to 10 hours a day and get to writing, because I'm really passionate about the story. The one I've just finished now, I'm just going through my last draft, my last edit. But this next film is about my world, which is in the theater. But its POV of it and how it's going to be shot is going to be really gritty and raw. Because I don't feel like there's anything out there that's really done the job of really telling a real story about performers who work on Broadway, West End, in theaters. And this one is a real eye opener. So I really enjoy. I'm putting everything on the page, and I'm very visual, so I'm imagining this scene in my head, and I'm just putting it on paper, and I can really go at it. I love that, but I do miss acting, but I guess through the writing, I've become a little bit more picky.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, you kind of go up for anything and everything, whereas now I'm just going to say, like this is what I can lend myself to, and all that. Dancing, funny you should say that, because that's just come back around. It's been a good while since I've properly been to a class for dance, but I'm getting back into it now. I actually have started to miss it, and I don't know why that suddenly just came back around. It's come back around in the last 2 months. And I really miss. I mean, I was really in it. I had to train with world professionals for 6 months prior to Dirty Dancing. Then we had 6.5 weeks of full-on rehearsal. Then we had 6.5 weeks of previews before we went in. It was very intense. And then I did it for 2 years. So my body was really in line with everything that happened there. And you have to train not only in, I was already trained in terms of from the physical and all the disciplines, but this was Latin, ballroom. So you have to train in mambo, salsa, bachata, everything. So, and I love that world. I love those steps. I love that world where it comes from. So I missed that. And my forte, and probably why I got that role as well, is that I love partner work.
Mm-hmm.
So dancing with someone, connecting with someone, I think that's one of the most beautiful forms of dance. And I would always love to go and see that. And, being, that I've done it, I understand what people go through to get into these shows, and you see a great performance. Again, it's like a miracle. I mean, what these guys are doing 8 shows a week, every week is pretty incredible.
It is. I go to Broadway all the time when I'm in New York, right? So most of the time I just keep going back to the Book of Mormon because it's so damn fun.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, I had a couple of friends in that, which is still going in London. I mean, it's been going with God knows how many years, which has proved to a success.
I saw the original cast with Josh Gad.
Oh wow, good for you. Well, you pretty much saw one of the best of the best, right? It's so good.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
But other performances, there's dance, and I just love, like, the stage is quite special. It's just too bad, like, it's so hard to get in there. It's so hard to make a living. Like, it's just, there's only like 1% of people who act on Broadway who...
You got to be in the top 1%.
Yeah.
What's that guy, Scott Galloway? He's talking about, like, you got to be in the top 1% if you want to hit it, and it's kind of true. Same for acting, how many people are in SAG and how many people actually generally work and go above a certain wage. It's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So anybody that's doing it, kudos to them.
You know what the top 1% is for podcasting?
What?
I think the top 1% is if you've published something like 50 podcasts. You're in the top 1%.
Really?
Yeah, because people start them and then don't finish them, or people just do like one a month or whatever. So there's so many podcasts out there, but apparently if you do 50 podcasts, you're in the top 1%.
I had no idea. I thought it would be way more than that.
Yeah.
But I guess that makes a lot of sense. Like you said, people start it. Again, it's not easy.
No.
And also to get people on and have good long form conversations, probably by 20, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is working. You have to be consistent, right? You have to just keep on keeping on.
That's the key.
Right?
Yeah.
Like anything else, you have to keep on keeping on. And from what I can tell from, whatever the top 5 podcasts are in the world, they just kept keeping on. And they started it from a place of passion, from what I understand. Yeah. They just wanted to talk.
No money.
No money. They just want either they wanted to talk or get high and get talk or whatever. So,
well, Joe Rogan was lucky because all his friends were famous comedians who also blew up with him.
Right. Yeah, his timing was pretty good.
And then the MMA also blew up with him.
Yeah, he did pretty well, right?
Yeah, and perfect timing. And then now there's this other girl. What's the name of the podcast? It's something Daddy. She got a what's the name? Thank You Daddy or something like that. She got a contract to do her podcast in Paris during the Olympics, having people like famous people come in who are going to the Olympics, and also athletes. So she's actually moved her entire podcast. She has like the second or third biggest podcast on Spotify. I can't remember what her name is. She's like a little petite blonde, but she's crushing it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I guess, it goes back to that, like the consistency of you just doing it, and then you never know when anything's going to happen. You just start. It's like my industry. I just, wake up tomorrow and something's going to happen. Someone gives me a call and it works out and off we go. It's just, I love that. I love the unknown of that, and the expectation of what could possibly happen.
I'm a grinder.
Yeah.
So for me to just like, and I think this comes from the sporting background.
Yeah.
Like,
For
how many
sure.
practices
Sure.
do you go to that you just don't want to fucking be?
Oh gosh, the weather. I mean, I remember, especially in rugby, like it's just dark all the time. It's dark when you wake up. It's dark when you go to sleep for like 6 months of the year in England. So it's pissing down with rain. Do I want to get in my car, go to training in the stadium and under floodlights where it's just pissing down? No, I don't. But you go. It's discipline. It's consistency, and that gets in your body, and that serves you well just generally in life. And that's another conversation, isn't it? Like where we are right now with how we are educating our youth and the discipline behind that. There's something to be said, I think.
Yeah. But it's great. It's such a great. I think some kids obviously aren't born with athletic capabilities, but they can be trained up to a certain level. But it's just that teamwork, that consistency, being there for everyone, and then of course then that translates almost perfectly into like motorcycle riding long distances, because you just have to put your head down and go like 10 hours. And it's miserable some days.
I can't even imagine like just on a motorbike in the middle of nowhere and the weather is what it is, and you just have to grit your teeth.
And then walking through a desert is like brutal.
Just the heat, and just like there's just nothing but sand. You can't see, on the horizon. You just got this mirage of heat, and that's it. You just like have no idea where you are.
And then podcasting fucking sucks.
Coffee in hand.
Exactly. No, but no, it's funny. Yeah, just like put out 2 podcasts a week. Meet as many people as you can. Be flexible with their schedule. I do all my own booking. I just find random people on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I'm just like, oh my God, they're in the creative arts. Like, this will be a good conversation. It'll be fun. And I just invite them, and people book like 2 months out. People book 1 week out. Like, it's just fun.
No, I was stoked that you reached out. It's great, and I love, like I said, I just think this is the way forward. Long form conversation, interesting conversations, and people want to connect and hear with it. And it's funny because you watch all these really big podcasts. We'll go back to like Joe Rogan. If you watch one of his when he did it when he lived here in LA, in comparison to where he is now, and then I started to listen to some other podcasts, and I was thinking, why is he so good, as a podcaster, and why are we so interested? Obviously, he gets great guests, and he's got a great setup, but he evolved. Such a great interviewer. The guest sitting in front of him, he'll fluctuate from just allowing them either to speak, and he knows when to ask questions. He got so good, but if you watch him from the early days, he's like all over the shop. He doesn't, and I think he would say the same, but it's just, like I said, it's consistency.
There's one, so I went back and watched the first 100 podcasts of Joe Rogan.
Right.
And there's one, so Bill Burr is one of my favorite comedians.
Right.
He's the bald guy.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I like him a lot. He's right up my alley.
So there's one podcast where it's Joe Rogan and Bill Burr and some other guy, I think, and Joe Rogan on the video podcast gets Bill Burr to sign up to Twitter because Bill Burr said social media is bullshit. And he's like, no, Twitter's the thing, man. He goes, you can just put out a tweet and let everyone know that you're going to be in Houston for 2 shows next Friday. And the fucking tickets sell, man. He goes, this is the future. And Bill Burr's like, I don't want to get on fucking social media. And then while they're there, and this is back in like 2005 or something.
Right. It's way back when. Yeah. Oh, Bill Burr, I've got a lot of time for him. He's hilarious. Yeah. But it's interesting to watch how they evolve. It's great, which is what you're doing right here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been in television for so long that the actual setup was not that big a deal.
Right. And you just knew what you're doing, which is quite obvious, yeah.
Well, and also too, like a lot of the other podcasters out there, they put, and I do this too, like they put what they bought in their studio, and then they have the Amazon affiliate links, and then when people buy, so I get a couple bucks a month of people buying the same cameras or the same curtains or the same microphones because I link to it, and I can see like people go every day and check what I'm using to set all this up. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, like, why would I hide it? Like, let's just make it accessible.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree. And if everybody had that mindset, it just goes to show where we could be.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great idea.
So when are you moving back to England?
Depends on.
Never.
I'll tell you.
Never.
I'll tell you around about November. I don't know. Ideally, I'd like to be able to move back and forth and have that freedom. To be quite honest with you, I think this is, LA is a great place. It's beautiful. I mean, having the beach and then being able to go for a hike and then even go skiing in the same day is insane. Mm-hmm. It's just a really beautiful place to live. And that coastal ride in my truck from LA up to Santa Barbara and then pushing up to the Big Sur. that coastline I will never ever get bored of. It's beautiful. It's stunning, So I love that. I mean, it's an incredibly expensive place as well. It's pretty insane, and everything else that goes with it. But maybe that's the price of paradise, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Well, all the famous people want to live here, or they don't. Now they're all in Texas.
So I was going to say they moved to Texas with Elon, or out to the desert. So, no, I mean, obviously England's my home. It's where a lot of my immediate family are. So I go back there, I check in, of course, and I like the back and forth of the contrast of cultures now, and what the other one gives the other, and that.
Do you like going back just looking much healthier than everyone else?
100%. With a tan, they love it. I generally send them. I really piss people off, especially my family. I send them those pictures of the ocean, dolphins swimming by. It's really sunny and beautiful. I often send them to my brother, who tells me to fuck off. I enjoy that. But no, I miss the little things about England, like a proper pub, like a proper country pub, that was built in the 1600s. You have to bend down to go through the door, and then the nice pint in front of an open fire. There's nothing better than that. And then just also the although we talk about like Bill Burr and there's other great comedians, just the comedy there, the humor is very different. I don't know how you found that. Maybe it's similar in Canada, probably, I don't know. But the humor over a dinner table. I remember when I first came here and we're sitting around quite a large table with all various people, and I won't say what they said, but I cracked a joke and the whole table just went awfully silent, and I had to reimburse it with I'm joking, it's a joke.
Yeah.
And I don't think they got it. From that point on, I just kept stum. So the humor is very different because we're quite witty and dark, and I grew up with some great stuff watching on TV, and
just keep it in the Ricky Gervais lane.
Yeah, right. Yeah, keep it in the Ricky Gervais lane. And so it's just the little things mainly, but in terms of lifestyle, yeah, it's incredible out here. So I don't see myself leaving. Do not want to leave, but who knows what's in store.
Sure.
Just keeping on, right?
Yeah. So how long? So I mean, what's the process of writing a script? Like, how do you come up with these fucking ideas, and then put them down on paper? Because that seems like a big job.
It is a big job, and I generally write features. Although I'm in the middle of the probability of writing a pilot right now for somebody. But for me, stories are everywhere, and I generally focus on something that's real life. It's biographical content, so I just hear them everywhere. I hear them in a coffee shop. I hear them on standing on the street, in the airport. I'll come up with the idea, a concept. Or I'm just doing general research and I find something that nobody's decided for whatever reason to put on the screen, and I'm thinking, why not? And I find a different angle. But the process, it's pretty heavy. It's a lot, and that's why people, there's not a lot of probably really strong feature writers, because it's a lot. You're going to spend, and I'm not a fast writer, so I'm not going to be able to bang out a feature film in, people are talking, I don't know how they do that. I've got to test that, but 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I have to do a lot of research, make sure I've got the concept right. I've got to line it up. I sit with it a lot. I'll go for a drive. I'll go down to the beach. I'm swirling it around in my head. I'm going, is this going to work? And then, of course, as you get more kind of, in a sense, successful within the business side, you're now thinking of the markets and who's going to probably want to buy it and where it will be distributed and all those kind of things. But generally, I'm sitting with the idea. I don't write for an audience. I don't write for anybody. That will start to come in as I'm halfway through or 3/4 way through, or or it evolves on the page. I don't outline massively. I outline to a certain extent, like a blueprint, like here's the start, here's the middle, here's the finish. Oh, that works. I think that's really going to work. And then I just go. And then I usually have a visual board in front of me. It's like a collage of pictures that inspire me about that story. And I just start to go. Then it takes a life of itself. And actually, the whole thing sometimes transforms in front of me from what I thought I was going to write about in terms of the structure, and completely change. So the thing is alive for me. It's a living thing on the page. And I'm just, I'm just driving the ship. And then this thing just comes alive. And then new characters come in. I'm like, oh, God, what about that? And then, I'm halfway through it and I'm having a dinner or I'm traveling and I go, oh my God, I just heard something. So I I have this little notebook I write down old school, and I just scribble these notes, and I'll bring them back. I'll plug them in, and I just start. It's just all this ingredients start to build and build, and you get more and more excited, and then you just kind of want to get to the end, and then just get this thing done and get it out there. And when you do, and people just go, "No, it's terrible. I don't want to buy it." You just, but no.
You know what I just thought of when you were saying that, though, is that, remember that scene in The Usual Suspects with Kaiser Sose, and he's pulling all the names and stuff off the board behind the cop,
right?
And he's just reeling the story form. And
right.
It was just when I was thinking, like, you just like working there, like looking up at this thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is, right there. Yeah, there, right. Yes.
Yeah, it is, and I love it. I never thought I would be in this position, but and here I've obviously people read my scripts, and some really very successful producers who are pretty hardcore. So they're going to tell you like, oh, this is shit, or we're on the wrong track here. I wouldn't do this for a living. And when I was here, I got some amazing feedback. I mean, with notes, of course, and there's criticism of that. You have to take that on the chin. But pretty successful producers who have read my stuff come back and say, really enjoyed this read. And for someone to sit down and read a feature film, that's 2 hours of their time. These people are busy. They've got a lot going on, even just general friends. For someone to sit down and read your feature film and give you professional feedback, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's a real commitment. So again, that's why it's hard, because you're trying to validate your own work and your own vision. You're in a bubble sitting at your desk and 8 hours a day. You don't have that feedback until you really put it out there, and that can be scary. But what prepared me for that was being an actor, constantly no, or never even getting a no. You're just walking out and you never hear it again and go, well, I obviously didn't get it.
Yeah.
So years of that, and years of rejection, and years of just no. When these guys gave me feedback, one of them was really generous. He's like, look, I really enjoyed the read. Think you've got something. Here's all my notes, which were like 10 pages long. He's like, please, if you want to speak to me again, ha, because there's so many notes. I'm like, no, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I love the feedback. I'm going to put this in. Let's meet. Let's do coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So my attack on it was probably a bit different, because I can understand. I know other writers, I've got other writers friends who aren't, so perhaps not welcoming to the feedback, but there's a huge risk. You love this, it's your baby, and you put it out there and people go, no, I don't like it. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And you spent 6, 7, 8, 9 months on it.
Yeah.
And some people are writing in a sense, it's a spec, it's for free, and you're hoping that it's going to do everything you want, and it doesn't. It's hard. And then you have to go again.
Yeah.
To write another feature, you go, oh, well, that's another 8 months of my. It's a lot, man. It's again, and people don't appreciate that. So writers are, they are the birth of everything. They are birth of the feature film, the TV, the scripted TV, documentaries, if it's falling in that genre. Without them, we're all a bit fucked.
I think a lot of people don't understand like how hard it is to get paid to write.
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And honestly, to this point, I know there's luck on my side.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's not always going to fall that way. And I was lucky to meet the right people at the right time. That generally happens, and that happens more so here in this town. That you're able to meet someone and they're willing to give up their time for a coffee or something, and then something happens. That's how it happened with my last script. I was at a dinner party and I met a producer, and he was in a sense fobbing me off. We're good friends now. We have a good laugh about it. But he's like, well, just give me the fucking script. I'll read it. He's like, I'll give you my feedback, but it will be harsh because I read so many scripts, and it's annoying. It's a lot of my time. So he did, and then 2 weeks happened, and he got back, and he's like, actually, this is something here is pretty good. So let's chat, and then it went from there, and then eventually, we sold it, and now it's in early development, and the others are on their way, and I'm about to finish another one. So, but it is consistency, it is discipline. You've got to want it. You've got to want to love it. That's part of the deal. And but yeah, it's incredibly hard. It's not easy. I mean, even the successful writers talk about it. They're like, it's really difficult writing. I find it very difficult. But what gets me over the hill is the passion. It's like I really want to get this story out here, because for me, there's always a message in my stories, which means for the human audience, they're going to receive something from it in terms of inspiration or connection, or they're going to want to get up off that sofa afterwards and just go, that's really made me feel this way. So I can, there's a belief in myself to go and do something. There's always a message that carries it. So, I don't write, in the sense like a superhero movie that, I'm writing really quite gritty drama in that genre where people connect with people who've been through something in a certain part of their life, and can get inspired by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
So I mean, obviously, Hunter S. Thompson, was it Live and Die in Las Vegas or something like that?
Leaving
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yes, yeah, right.
So what's your drug and alcohol budget per month?
It's a lot.
It's a tough world out
My
there.
sponsors Adderall and gin. Gordon's gin.
No, it's tough. It's tough. One of the questions I want to ask you is, when you start on day one writing fresh script, what percentage of those day one moments are spec, and what percentage of those day one moments are commissioned, where you know you're going to get some money at the end of that?
Oh, it's for me at this point, it's more spec.
Yeah, for everyone, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, unless you're Taylor Sheridan, who's one of my favorite writers, who, funnily enough, like the journey of him as an actor. He was in, was it Sons of Anarchy? He was playing the police officer or the police chief. And, I'm a huge fan of him and how he writes. He writes beautiful scripts, stunning. It's like reading a novel, and then he puts it on screen. He's a great director. I mean, he's a real powerhouse. But same with someone like Michael Mann. If you read Heat or Last Mohicans, those scripts are stunningly beautiful and so descriptive.
Two of my favorite movies.
Yeah, down to the leaf of, the microcosm is just incredible. Those guys really inspire me because I read a lot of other scripts and understand how people write and how that transfers onto the frame, onto the script. Sorry, what was your question? I just got lost then in my world of...
I love writing so much, I forgot the question.
Yeah.
Just what percentage is spec versus commission?
Yeah, for me, it's more spec. And like you said, perhaps it is for everybody else. Unless you're these people, all the studios like, please write us something that's going to be a success. I mean, everybody's just trying to put something out there and trying to go and have a meeting about it and sell it. So for the most part, spec. That's the hard thing. It's like trying to keep that train going while living in the real world, right? And paying the rent, paying the bills, right? It's like, you're trying to produce something that's gonna, if you're writing a feature, even if you're writing fast, there's months and months of your time. But it's about momentum. And now I've got that momentum. It's great because you've got things in the bank and things are in development. So now people will engage with you more because you can just say, hey, I've got this and this is in development. Prior to that, it was really, really hard. It's like, who the fuck are you? What have you got? You're another writer. Great, whatever. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's that hard. It was for me. Once I got that break, then you're like, oh my God, there's a light. There's a bit of a light there. People will meet with me and engage with me, and then it's the next one. But you got to prove yourself. It's constant, right? It's like anything else. So it's like, what have you got next? And generally, they'll say that in meetings, like, you have a meeting about this, and they're like, what else are you doing? Because they want the whole thing. They want it. They have to put that content onto their platforms. But for the most part, definitely spec. And obviously, I want to get to the point where they're approaching me and it's all commissioned and it's got a lot of zeros at the end of it, because that just makes you relax more into it and know that you can spend time on it and really do a great job. But I think that's few and far between right now, especially what's going on after the strikes. Technology's coming in. It's narrowing the gap for, especially for writers' rooms, probably not so much maybe for feature films, but especially for writers' rooms, which is probably the predominant content now. That's feature films have lagged behind because they're so hard to make. They're very expensive. They're long. Whereas TV series, that's what turns around the money. And if they get it right, it can really do really, really well. Yeah.
One of the you can stay silent for the next 5 minutes if you want. I'm going to go on a total rant here. Then this is going off into the deep water. Probably canceled territory. One of
you on that episode.
Okay, I'm not judging anyone for their personal life or what they've done in their past or who they are as a person. I'm only talking at this moment about their professional career. But one of the most prolific writer-directors of all time, whose career I have absolutely adored, again, not mentioning anything about his personal life, is Woody Allen. And for him to make a movie a year and premiere at Cannes and write it and cast it and direct it and edit it and put the whole thing out and have so many Oscar-winning roles coming out of his writing has been spectacular. And COVID kid Woody Allen. He hasn't made a movie since before COVID.
No.
And when you talk about writers, I mean, he's won like 4 or 5 original screenplay Oscars.
Oh yeah,
And he's completely disappeared.
Yeah, it's no, I agree in terms of what he's produced and what he's put out there as a talent and as a filmmaker is incredible. And he really digs deep on the story and what he portrays on that frame is really incredible. So I agree with you on that. But yeah, COVID killed a lot of people off, unfortunately. Whether that was also used as an excuse, who knows? I don't know. But like I said, everything has changed, and you either roll with it or try to and adapt and keep going, or you don't. Or these guys have done so much, they've done so well. They might be in a position where they're like, this is too hard. I've had enough. Not in the sense that it's too hard to do the work, but the pushback of what you're telling me of how I should or shouldn't shoot my film or write what I need to write. Plus, like you said, let's not mention the personal life, because, I don't know about his personal life or anything that goes on until, you have the facts. But in terms of an artist, incredible. Yeah. But like I said, I think COVID killed off a lot of people and stopped a lot of motion.
It was momentum.
You're right. Right. Yeah.
Like for me, it was so easy for me to get funding for my next project when I was on my current project. And I was able to do that for like a decade. I had great momentum. Like I knew when to be pitching. You got to be pitching when you're already filming something else, and if you're filming something else, you got to be writing the next thing. And I had that so nicely. And then it was just like 3 years of crickets.
Isn't it funny that I was just thinking when you're saying that about that busy momentum, there's something about that vibration in somebody or something that when you're not thinking about what could or couldn't go wrong, or these gaps in our schedule in the day or weeks or months, like when you're super busy. What's that saying when they say, give it to a busy person if you want it done, right? Yeah. It's true, because the person that's lacking or just waiting for something, they're really kind of they're slow in that attack. Whereas if you give it to a busy person that's always on, it's just there's something about that that's great,
And those busy people will come back and say like they love their work. They've never worked a day in their life. They don't work over but they work constantly and they just love it. They just eat it up.
Yeah. And I feel I'm very much in that lane. I mean, I get, my wife has a go at me and I'm going to go up and write until midnight, and we're supposed to be going out for dinner. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, let's do that.
And then, but a bottle of gin.
Yeah, right. But I generally love what I do, so I'm very lucky for that, but yeah, definitely give it to a busy person. But it's that vibration as well, because I've got into a more the spiritual content, especially being in LA. And understanding that and your personal vibration about how you see things, your output, and the positivity of that. Look at everything, back in England, there is a kind of culture to kind of moan or look at things in a different way. Whereas, and we take the piss out of it, and vice versa. And we have this great synergy between, England and America. We're allies in so many things. But like I said, the English will say, oh, the Americans, they're quite loud and they'll go back to but the positivity here is incredible. Everybody's kind of, in general, from what I can tell, in comparison to England or Europe, they're looking at it like, okay, well, where's the next hurdle? It's not a failure. It's just it didn't work out, so just turn left. So, and I felt that going back to England. I go back and I'll hang out at the pub or be with friends, and I'll see it and I'll feel it. Like, oh, it's very different here. I come back here and there's this positivity to wanting to move forward and seek out like what's next. So this I really enjoy, and it's funny you brought that up about that vibration of being really busy and on it, and like I'm just on to the next one, and people can feel it, like when you're coming in the room or there's no excuse, there's no like, this is who I am. So you're literally on the road, but they want to contact you like, well, look, I can't get to you, but I'm here, and I'm covered in mud on my bike, and because I'm shooting the thing. Yeah, no worries, we'll be there. And it's like you can literally just make the deal on the back of a bike and you're off again. Yeah. Whereas if you're going after it and you want it, for some reason it's weird that vibration doesn't work out always.
It's true, and coming out of COVID is like running the Olympic 100-meter dash and like starting on your heels facing the wrong way.
Right.
And you're like, shit, I got to turn around and get going again. Like,
yeah. And it seems to be ever evolving like really fast right now. And like I said, with technology and how to do things and how we work, and it's all changed. And everyone's moved out of the office and there's all this commercial real estate standing free, and it's just everything you look at, you just go, God, it's all changing. And I think for the better, we're amongst it right now, so it's always difficult, isn't it? And especially if it affects you, it's always hard. But I'm always trying to look for the positive. Don't get me wrong. I like I said, I swear blindly sometimes, and days don't work out, and it's up, down, left, and right. But in general, I really try and keep on track and like meditate in the morning to go, right, just as a meditation, it was just like, just stay positive. Like, look at the positive. It could be really bad, but where's the positive in this? Where's the silver lining? You know, and there's always tomorrow, right? So it's like always trying to chase that. So I'm a big believer in that. And that's when I'm writing, you know, I get into this bubble. I get actually into that world of that script and that story and those characters. And for me, it really comes alive. And I think that's why I love it, because I'm storyteller. And that's what I've been doing. It's in different forms: actor on stage, actor in front of the camera, even doing an event, being an artist director. Everything I do, I'm just a storyteller. That's all I am. I think we all are in some form. I just do it for an industry that then, you know, is going to put it out on screen, and hopefully people connect with that.
You know what I like the most about here compared to the rest of the world is people aren't afraid to fail, and
100%,
and which I think is crucial, because I think if you're afraid of failing, you're never going to give your best work.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I really love too is, like, I met a venture capitalist guy a couple of months ago, and he said something super interesting, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, I got this friend, he's doing this thing, you know, and he's like, well, how many times has he failed on his startups? And he goes, no, this is his first startup. He goes, I won't talk to him. He goes, I only talk to founders who have already failed 2 or 3 times, because they will not make the same mistake again.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's true. I mean, we look at all the great successes and you look back and you read their books or their biographies, they've failed massively and they've just kept on going. Well,
and we never hear about those.
No, you don't hear about that. And that's another weird thing about our culture, isn't it? That we're just looking constantly at success. And I think that's because in my next script, it's heavily featured about mental health, especially for men. And, you know, I think, again, I think there's a huge positive side about social media and everything we can do for us and businesses, etc. But also there's a downfall, isn't there? And you have to be careful of that. And mental health is a really big issue right now, and especially how it affects, you know, and I'm not sidelining, I'm just talking about because I'm focusing on the story that I'm writing right now, but especially for men who feel perhaps they can't speak up or they can't vocalize it, and you know, it has a huge effect on them. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time.
Yeah, not easy. Where do you see AI helping writers instead of crushing writers?
That's like the biggest topic right now, isn't it?
Well, that's why I had to ask.
Yeah, it's helping writers. Well, I'm not entirely sure in terms of the differential of programs that are out there for AI for writers right now. I mean, there's ChatGPT and all these different things, but I think what it can do in terms of helping is perhaps like speeding up structure within script writing. From my understanding, there's no way it can write human dialogue, you know, effective human dialogue that really pulls on the heartstrings or we really connect to. I don't think it can do that yet. I imagine with how fast it's moving and also the content that we're pumping into it, 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many years. I'm not that guy to analyze that, but I guess in the future it could create that kind of format and that dialogue. But I think right now for structure, speeding up structure and understanding, you know, give me the outline of this kind of story. It could chuck that up there, because for me as a writer, like I said, I have generally a collage of pictures, so I pull from that. I'm literally pulling from it, and I'm looking up and I'm feeding. Oh yeah, remember that. Whereas perhaps AI has a place there where it can speed up of all your ideas, putting into a melting pot, feeding it into AI, and going, can you just give me some structure here? And then bam, it comes out, and then you could not as necessarily, you know, you can kind of ride off of that. But at this point, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see who is using it at that level every day to help them write a script or, you know, a TV series, a pilot, or however they structure it. Maybe they already are in terms of these studios. And yeah, I don't know. I tend to, like I said, I write real life. You know, I write in the genre of drama, and so a lot of mine is that real life kind of dialogue. I feel like I have a fairly decent style as well. So yeah, who knows? I don't know.
I think the one question I have is, like, these AI programs that they're building, they're being fed with books and media, and just like they're being fed with everything that's on our planet that's been written or spoken, right? And I'm like, they're not paying for any of that content.
No. Gee, that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
Nvidia's up 8,000% in the last month on the stock market because they're making AI chips, and OpenAI, does Chat GPT. And it's like, but who's paying for all the books and all the large language models? No, none of that money's going to content creators. That's one thing that I was just watching the BBC or something the other day, and they was like, oh, these large language models have to be fed, all these billions of hours of television and all. And I'm like, well, no one's paying for that.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And eventually they'll swallow all of it and have it, and then be able to regurgitate it, and that'll be it. There'd be no more use to it, in a sense, for like you said, the industry for books or anything that's tangible, I guess.
It's going to be YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's because YouTube, everyone's like, oh, let's watch it on YouTube, like cats and blah, blah, blah. But YouTube is becoming the record of our history.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I watch, to be quite fair.
Yeah.
How to do something, or I want to watch somebody, or a podcast, or everything for me is on YouTube. I don't watch, standard terrestrial TV. I watch platforms, Netflix, Amazon, etc. But I think it's all just going to be on platforms and YouTube. I think YouTube's fantastic. It's great. The fact that you can now go on and learn a language, or learn how to, install a new toilet, or make a bridge out of pennies or something. I mean, it's just got everything on there. It's insane.
It is.
You can just go on there and just learn how to be anything and anybody, to be quite honest. And look, as long as people are getting views from it, they're making money out of it, that's all good. I'm all for it. But in terms of AI, you're right. I don't think anybody knows, right? Maybe one or two people in the middle of the desert in some kind of bunker or something. I don't know, with billionaires who own UFOs that are flying around as well. That's another interest of mine. But yeah, I don't know. In terms of how it helps writers, I don't know. I think they saw it as a threat. I guess to some degree it has been a threat, but it's definitely not going away. So I've decided just to understand it at a basic level. Like I said, I don't think, tell me I'm wrong, but I've put that amount of time into it that it can write really kind of great dialogue. It can write you a script. I don't think it can do that. I think obviously it's helping people, it's taking jobs in terms of resumes and writing out kind of corporate structure, or feed it this and then just make it sound and look better. I think this is a problem with education, right? Students studying, they can just feed all this stuff into ChatGPT, and they're not really going out and looking for the book and going through it and really studying, what's going on, or finding another way to do it. They're just going to ChatGPT, and I don't know how you put a firewall on that. I mean, but I guess that's the next thing they're looking at. But it's definitely not going away. It's definitely going to change our world. It already is. Let's just stand back and have a look and see what happens. I don't know. It's going to be interesting times.
A lot of people are talking about how it's going to speed up post-production. I think that's one of the most exciting things. So, whether it's coloring audio, maybe even actually cutting episodes,
right.
There might be something at some stage where an AI can run for 72 hours straight and cut a feature film or something based on inputs you give it, right? That's really creepy.
That's really creepy. It's kind of scary that there's not a human eye who's trying, as a great editor, to say, I want this frame, and they're sitting with the director, and, the fact that you just go, I just leave it overnight to cut my film, that to me sounds crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds sad to me.
Well, there's already these there's, for social media, there's already these picture video aggregators. So you upload 5 short videos, and it'll just mix them together and pull out what the AI thinks is the most interesting parts of those videos and collab them all together. So you get this collage.
Right. Which I understand on a basic level, but what algorithm is it? Is it favorable to why it's cutting that?
Yeah.
It must have some kind of back end algorithm to say, we're going to cut this because that's better than that. That's
created by white males
drinking whiskey.
It's terrible.
Yeah, right. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not against it and I'm not for it. I'm just kind of somewhere in the middle because I just do what I do. until it really affects me, I guess then I'll look into it more. But it's not for me. It's not my world. I'm all for innovation, technology. That's our world. Like I said, I'm not against or for it. It's just I just kind of sit somewhere in the middle.
So I use AI for this actually. So what I do is I record on all 3 cameras,
right?
And then I live switch here with my fingers like I do now. But then I grab the audio, and then there's this program, it's AI generated, where it'll pull out the bass lines, pull out the voices, get rid of everything else. There's a little buzz or a hum from a light.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
But 5 years ago, I would have had to pay
someone to
do that
through the whole thing, and that's hours and hours of that's a lot of money.
And when I started this podcast, I did all the research trying to figure out how I could do it 100% by myself, because I would hate to invite you to come from the west side across the fucking 405, and then come here for a podcast and then have my engineer not show up.
Right. Yeah.
Because I can't have a bunker like fucking Rogan and have like a full-time staff.
Yeah.
So it would be a part-time job, an hourly job, and then next thing you know, he gets another better paying job, and then he can't show up, and then you and I are just drinking whiskey. We don't even get a chat.
That would be so bad. We could always do that after this.
We could do that after this.
But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting where it lands with AI. Obviously, it's affecting and evolving everything else, but it's not really my world. But I'm just standing by, watching it, and seeing what's going to happen. But in terms of writers, I mean, look, I think where it has affected it is writers' room, because where you had 20 writers working on a TV series, they'll perhaps now pick out the best 4 or 5, maybe less, the predominant writers, the head writers, and the rest was saying, they'll come up to them and go, rewrite this scene or collaborate with X, Y, and Z, and we need to rewrite this or make this flow better, blah, blah, blah. All those guys might be gone because AI can control that, because the content is already there. So they can feed it in and just say, we need to shorten it, we need to lengthen it, give us a contrasting idea about X, Y, and Z. Whereas the head writers are the ones that are real talent in terms of the juice of like writing great dialogue and the structure of it. And so I think it's shortening that, which obviously saves the studio money and time. So eventually it's going to hit. And I think that's what they were really, scared about. I think that's what partly these strikes were about, and trying to slow that down. I don't think you can stop it, but try and slow it down. And if they are going to use it in the form of human ideas and content being fed into it, then they should be, like you said, be paid for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next thing with everything. It's like, we're feeding all these books into it. Well, who's getting the royalties from that? And I think that's the next step now, is to work out a system whereby whatever we're feeding into it, those people that have created that content or that art need to be rewarded. But by the time that happens, I guess it's going to be swallowed so much information, moving so fast. And the scariest thing I've heard is that on some level is now got a mind of its own. So eventually then, now we're in the territory of, isn't it funny, film always is before it actually happens, like Terminator. So we're now looking at Terminator, Skynet, and where it's us against the robots, which could generally happen, right?
There's a crazy fucking movie with Johnny Depp and Morgan Freeman, where Johnny Depp is a crazy, like, revolutionary scientist,
right?
And he dies, but he puts his cognitive functions into a computer, and his wife or girlfriend or lab assistant, female, is still talking to him like he's alive, and then and it's like the first AI,
right?
And then he's like, oh, but just plug me into the internet and everything will be great. And she plugs him into the internet. He like takes over the whole world. It's fucking insane. I don't know why no one's talking about this movie, because of like,
why? Because it's probably happening right now.
Yeah, but he takes over like the satellites. He takes over the airline. Like he takes over the whole world and the banking system and everything. And it's insane. I can't remember what the name of it is.
I haven't seen that. I need to watch that.
I'll send you a link or something. It's out there.
You obviously travel a lot around the world, and you see all different cultures and religions and all of this. And obviously, what's going on right now with this country, the presidential election, there's Europe at war, the circus. Where do you see everything in 5-10 years from now?
It's just going to get messier.
That's what I think as well.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's any resolve in it, really.
There's none. No. I think, look, there's 8 billion people on the planet. Some people say that's too little. We need to make more people because pandemic could wipe us all out. Other people say there's too many people. It's putting too much pressure on the earth and our resources and our, and it's just the more people there are, the more crazy people there's going to be too, right? Like that's just a statistic, a ratio of statistics. And the more people there are, the more crazy people there's going to be. And I just feel like and it's just going to be, it's going to be easier for one crazy person to do more damage in the future.
Yeah.
So whether it's a hacker bringing down an airline, or someone figuring out how to launch a nuclear weapon, via a phone in the middle of the ocean where there's no international law, like just something crazy like that. Like it'll happen at some stage. I just feel like no one cares. Like everyone's just too busy trying to make money. No one's like managing humanity.
No, everyone's just trying to survive. Well, there's a portion of people trying to survive, and then there's the other portion, like you said, just try and make as much money as they can, which, I understand. But I agree. There's just so many of us now, and this technology, and I think AI, if it does start to take over and dictate, literally, they'll just find out that, humans are really bad for the planet, and we need to get rid of them, or we need to be much more militant with them. And that's where that idea of Terminator came in, where the robots take over.
That's Elon's biggest fear, is that whoever's writing the AI programs is a pessimist about human activity on the Earth, right? And then when these AIs do take over or start, telling us what to do, that they just want to get rid of us.
Yeah, but that's when I got interested in UFOs, because I started going crazy. I was like, oh God, here I go. I'm going down this rabbit hole, because are we the only living form in this universe? Absolutely not. It's just if you put all the facts together and what we know right now, which is very little in comparison to how big the universe is. It's funny, all this now suddenly, being leaked, that yes, we are seeing UFOs. We've been seeing them for 50, 60 years. The advancement of technology, how they're trying to merge that in very slowly, and how secretive and they are with all that. It's a really interesting time right now, and actually a great time to come up with concepts and stories, actually.
But it still takes you fucking 12 hours to fly from LA to London, right?
In a steel tube, and all you get served is that's when I drink a lot of gin, actually.
Get you through.
Yeah, get me through. You get to like 8 hours, and you're like, surely we're there. And you look at that map thing on the front of your screen, you're like, fucking hell.
Still over Canada somewhere. That fucking huge weight of a country.
Yeah, right. God damn it, it's massive. America's just fucking so big in comparison to England. I can drive up and down it in like 5 hours, and I can only get to Las Vegas in 5 from here,
if you're lucky.
If I'm lucky. So, it's a massive, incredible place. And I'm very grateful to be here. That's for sure. Not a lot of people get to do this, or what you do. Not saying that we don't push and work for it and strive for it, but to be able to maneuver around other countries and live in other countries and understand other cultures and see how things actually work. I think that's what makes people grow. And that's, I guess, another fear with AI. Will it control, like, you're not allowed to go outside your borders? I mean, you've been in places where it's quite militant in terms of, like, maybe China and especially places like North Korea, where you are not allowed to do other than what they tell you to do. It's
COVID was a trial run for that.
Well, that's what we're now coming around to, aren't we? About they were testing.
You want to hear something crazy?
Please.
So in 2020, I was in Ethiopia filming in March 2020 when the world closed, and then I couldn't go back to Dubai because they wouldn't let me, and then I ended up in Turkey for 4 months, but then when I got back to Dubai, then I was kind of trapped, right? Because Dubai had a policy where if you want to leave Dubai on an airplane, you need to be vaccinated.
Yes, that's what I had to do. Yes.
Right. So I was setting up a business in Switzerland at the time as well. So I was going back and forth between Dubai and Switzerland, and so I had to get vaccinated. I guess originally I felt like, well, if it has flu-like symptoms, I'm probably strong enough and healthy enough that I'll be fine. But I was not allowed to leave the country without being vaccinated. So I had to get vaccinated. Okay. So for the first few weeks or months, you would have to show your vaccination certificate at the airport.
That's right.
But then people were faking them.
Yeah.
And that was an issue. So then one day I checked in to the Emirates, at the Emirates desk for my flight to Zurich. And she's like, oh, I can see you've already been vaccinated, and here's your ticket. And I was like, how the fuck? I didn't show you anything.
Yeah.
And it was in the fucking system. So Emirates somehow just grabbed all of our medical data, or at least our vaccination data, from the health advisory of the UAE or Dubai, and just pumped it in through their system to speed up the process without ever checking with us. And I was just like, oh, that's a fucking scary misstep.
Yeah.
Because that's
like red flag right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and medical records are sacred. Like that's just sacred. Like that's private beyond private. And for them to be just funneled into like an airline, that freaks me out.
Yeah. And the fact that they, I did the same thing. I had to travel, so I had to get it done. I forget where I went, but somewhere around here, and in the middle of a car park, parking lot with the military giving it to me, shot in the arm, literally sat down, bang, off again. And now we understand that it was rushed through. God knows what was in it, what's in our bodies, and it's been a really weird time for everybody. But it definitely was a test run. What's the next thing? I think it's bird flu, isn't it? And they're trying to bring back.
I don't know. I mean, it's if you create your own problem and you already have the solution, you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's draconian, and that's a conspiracy theory. But honestly, food companies make people fat, so the healthcare industry can.
Of course, it's all connected. Like if you just open your eyes and do some critical thinking, it's all there. And then, I guess to some extent, you have a choice of how you want to eat, how you want to live, and it's like you said, everyone's just trying to survive and make as much money, because then you have some sort of freedom, don't you?
Yeah.
It's an interesting time we live in, that's for sure.
I just want to make enough money. I'm going to go on the record now. I just want to make enough money so I can buy a huge ranch in Wyoming and get my Colombian mercenary guys to come out, get a whole bunch of guns, a whole bunch of cats, because I'm a cat guy, and just ride out my days there.
Did you shoot?
I started shooting, actually. Okay. Guns scare me.
Yeah.
But I would go to a shooting range quite often during COVID.
Right.
And I fucking love it.
Which one do you go to? Because I growing up in England, we don't have guns. We just, but on the farms they had a few shotguns. But I did it here. I went on a course, got myself a gun. I've got a Glock, and I want to go to the range now. But I'm interested where you go.
So I was doing it in Dubai. So yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in Dubai they had a shooting range as well, and it was amazing. I would just sit there with the sniper rifle, and I would just like breathe, bah, boom, and I loved it. Like it was such a great discipline. And then I started thinking like, wow, like I missed out. Like I'm actually a pretty good shooter. Like what if when I was a kid, I grew up in Scandinavia, and then I was doing the biathlon where you do the cross-country skiing and the shooting. That, to me, is like one of my favorite sports in the world.
Yeah. That's incredible. What's the gun laws in Dubai?
No, you're not allowed to have a private gun.
So you have to go to the range and then hire one to shoot it, etc.
But they had them all. You could choose like,
wow.
Yeah, yes, sniper rifles, handguns. So I would shoot, and I got really into like target shooting, and I really did.
Well, again, there's for responsible people, there's an art to it. It's great.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would love it or like it, and it was just out of necessity that I got a gun, protect me and my family and in my house. Just generally, I was like, okay, I need to step it up. But I want to learn how to do this properly, so I went on a proper course, shot, at the range, got a certificate, blah blah blah. But now just going to the range and being able to shoot and it's an art form. You're getting closer in, you're getting tighter groups, and I enjoy it.
It's so relaxing too.
It is. Yeah. It does release something in you. And if I speak like this back home, they're like, "What? You got a gun? You got a gun?" Like, yeah, everyone's got a gun. And again, that's another form of being lucky to live in another place and understand the culture. Because for the people that are responsible who have guns, I get it. Of course, I understand it. It's just the ones that are a little cray-cray.
We're one fucking lab fuck up away from like a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, is that? If you see that film, I haven't seen the film yet, but is it called Civil War?
I haven't seen Civil War yet.
Yeah, they're talking about how how close that is to where we are, and what's coming.
I want to have skills for those days.
Me too.
Yeah,
that's generally why I did it. When we were in the pandemic and the riots were kicking off. They came pretty close to the house, and then we were speaking to some other people, and they're like, yeah, they broke into the house, and then there was that crazy thing where I think they just so overwhelmed that the local governments just said, look, let them riot, let them smash up, as long as they don't threaten life form, just do your job, which was kind of crazy, but that happened. So you're like, well, if they just come brocking into my neighborhood and smash my window, I need to protect myself. So, and I can't do that with a spoon. I need a gun.
I can do it with a spoon.
You can do it you like Jason Bourne, I told you.
That's a script we need to write together.
Yeah, I would. Let's do it. Yeah, with all your experiences and mine, and two different cultures, and then you're Canadian as well. Yeah, it could be a good script. But that's cool, man. Yeah. Like I said, I need to get to the range.
Yeah.
Fun. It's a lot of fun.
We should go together.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
That'd be good.
What are you working on in the next couple of months? What do you got to talk about that's coming out? What are you proud of that might be happening?
Well, like I said, the Olympic film is in development, which is really exciting because we're looking to launch that alongside LA 28, which is going to be here, which is great. So that's a real big epic film. I can't speak too much about it, but it does cover the Olympics. It's around that subject matter.
Does Gerard Butler bring the whole Olympics down?
That could be a spin-off. That could be the sequel.
White House Down was epic.
That was. He's did he how many there's 3 or 4 of those. He had like London Down, London Falling.
And
my friend just filmed with him in London, so maybe that's another one's coming. So God bless the franchise. The one I'm about to wrap up right now is, like I said, it's based on a real life story about a guy who was a principal ballet dancer. He was actually from Australia, and he worked on Broadway and all around the world. And but we follow his off-stage life. Mm-hmm. So we focus on something that people haven't seen before, and from a POV that's not like one-dimensional. So we're not sitting in the audience watching a beautiful stage, blah blah blah. We're watching the development and how someone evolves to get to be on Broadway, West End, and be that good. But there's a lot of sacrifice and there's a lot of darkness in it. But darkness is good in stories because we all connect with that. You know, nothing's just pure joy and happiness. Everyone's always talking about, especially, you know, in this day and age, like everything's got to be joy, and it's, you know, we can't be too dark. But darkness is part of like real life, especially as a performer. I think there's a lot of sacrifice in that. So we're following his journey, and I'm looking forward to bringing that out and starting to develop that. On the acting side, I mean, that's just, who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows what's around the corner? So we'll see.
Jim Cameron's going to call you, and you're going to end up in fucking New Zealand for 8 years.
Let's do it, Jim. Let's go. Jim, give me that call. I'd be up for it. So yeah, it's the writing I can control somewhat, and that's always exciting. The acting you can never control. So
you're just someone else's plaything.
Exactly. You're just a number, right?
Yeah.
But I'm happy to be. So, more life in LA. Just live life, man. It's all good.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you so much for swinging by today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
And now we can go up here and show people that we're in the same room. And this is not a Zoom podcast. This is real life.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for swinging by.
All the best.
And this is all the post-production quality. Look, fade to black. And we're done.